welcome to the broadcast on this Wednesday night, November 19th, 2025. We're going to be joined tonight by Trevor Loudon. I want to talk about technocracy again. I want to talk about Curtis Yarvin. I want to talk about J.D. Vance. I want to talk about Peter Thiel. I want to talk about what is the difference between technocracy and communism. How about this? How is it that the communists are attracting so many young people to their side tonight? I think I've come up with four things that are going on that are going to attract a lot of middle-class students, young people, I should say, to communism. Has this ever happened before in American history to this degree? The communists are always after the middle class. That's one of their goals. But I'm going to give you four ways that I think that this time the communists, the socialists, can successfully recruit a lot of young people to their side, middle-class young people, many of them with college degrees, many of them who maybe were even embracing the concepts and the ideas of MAGA and voted for Trump, but they've been disillusioned. They're discouraged. They see the price of inflation and houses and the lack of jobs and all the things going on, and they may be willing now to throw in with socialism and universal basic income. 4 points I want to bring to you tonight and get a response from Trevor Loudon. We also have, and we're going to talk a little bit about this book. I'm going to read some quotes from Patrick Wood's book, Final Betrayal, and ask Trevor to give us his thoughts on some of this. I think you'll find this very interesting. What does he think of J.D. Vance, Trevor Loudon? I'll ask him. And then after our interview with Trevor, we're going to go to some reports that have been filed by our reporter on the ground in Israel, who, as you know, is a professional tour guide, licensed tour guide there in Israel. So we've asked him to go out throughout Israel and to do interviews and to bring us historical sites. He's an expert on these because he brings a lot of tourists from all over the world to these sites. So he's giving us a private tour. Tonight, we're going to go to the Pool of Siloam. We're going to go there, and then we're going to go to the City of David, right? Those are the two places we're going to tonight together with our personal tour guide, Aharon Levarko. Brought to you by our foundation, of course, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. I'm not going to spend a lot of time plugging product tonight, guys. You know the products that we bring to you each and every night. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You know them. The question is, do you use them? If you do, thank you. If you don't, would you consider using one or more of these products? All right, let me go to my computer here and show you. You guys know all of our different products. Consider going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, using some of these products. They're great products. I think a great way to support your health, some of these products, and us at the same time. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Bella Grace, Numi, Gatatana, the Bella Melt. Melissa's been taking the Bella Melt and keeps losing weight. I'm like, wait, you need to slow it down a little bit, sweetheart. You don't need to be losing weight. But she is losing more weight on Bella Trim. She's very happy with it, but I think I need her to taper it off a little bit. You don't want to get too thin. That's my opinion. So anyway, she loves the Bella Melts. She loves their skincare products. She loves the elixir like I do. And I take the elixir each and every day, as you know, Bella Grace. So anyway, they're all there. Check it out. And of course, you know I do the Gatatana every day. I give half a scoop to Dolly. You know I do the Numi. I swish with this to detox my cells. And studies show it can help remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Right, Dolly? Right, Dolly? Yep. So I do these things every day. You want to come over here and say hello to everybody tonight? We got some great comments about you last night. People writing, no, you cannot drink my coffee. We got some great comments. People saying, she's so cute. She's so adorable. You are, though. You are cute. You are cute. Yep. You got to keep your eyes cleaned out. There you go. What would you do if you didn't have a dad to keep your eyes cleaned out? I bet I'm not the only pet owner that does that, right? Keep those eyes clean. Yep. You are cute, aren't you? Yes. Yes. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're a cute baby. Thank you. Yeah. And you get your Gatatana every day. Your teeth are nice and white because of it. Yes, you're a good girl. You're going to give me worms or something if you keep doing that. You don't have worms, do you? I hope not. We both have to get on ivermectin then. All right. So, Dolly, you get a lot. Whenever I have you on camera, I get emails, people talking about you. I bet you're going to get some Christmas gifts in the mail, at least some Christmas cards. Are you seriously going to drink my coffee? You are, aren't you? Okay. No on the coffee. You'll be up all night. That's what I don't need, right? So anyway, I'm glad you stopped by to say hello. Enjoy the show. Go take a nap. There you go. All right. It's all there. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Hey, maybe buy somebody a satellite phone this year. I love my satellite phone. And the minutes roll over month to month. And the satellite phone is free when you sign up for one of their very reasonable monthly plans. They have the bulletproof backpacks. They have the solar generators and so much more. And I guess the final thing I would mention real quick, guys, is Worldview Store, worldviewstore.com. I don't know what's coming in 2026, folks. I really don't. But we do know the cover of The Economist magazine looks like they're predicting war and maybe some economic problems. I have no idea. But I tell you this, prepare and pray. Prepare and pray. If I were you, I would make sure I had all my own food, my medical kits, my heaters, my ovens, everything you need, folks. Be prepared. And I'll tell you again, I got plenty of food, and I have a good chunk of it that's for bartering. Because if we have an economic crisis or a dollar collapse, I don't know what's coming. I want to be able to barter with some of it, because I'm telling you, a lot of people will gladly, do electrical work or plumbing work or whatever you need done. Most of them will gladly take it for food. And this is not just any kind of food. This is great food. It's real food. It's just been freeze-dried, gluten-free. We have fruit and veggie, all kinds of stuff there, folks. This is not a joke. You got to be ready. The government's not going to help you, nor would you want to be dependent on them. So make sure you have what you need for yourself or your loved ones. This would actually be a good Christmas gift to buy for your kids, your grown kids. Buy them this kind of stuff. Say, look, this is for you guys. Stick it away in a safe, dry, cool place. And if something happens, we just want you guys to have this. It'd be a great gift to buy for your adult children. Whether they want it or not, you should buy it so they have peace of mind. And maybe more importantly, you have peace of mind. Then you at least know they have something, right? Particularly if they don't live nearby you. So there you go. Think about some of those things. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. I will mention one more thing while I'm on it. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Over 35 years of my ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, documentaries, 22 years of our National Worldview Weekend. My new book on Hamas is in there. My book on sabotage, is that in there yet? That's in there. My new book on sabotage. Siege, the new book on siege. That's in there now. Just go to library, ebooks, and you'll find it. So my new book on Hamas, my new book Siege, and coming soon, my book Sabotage, based on that documentary. And then my Revelation commentary, which I'll be working on that big time over Thanksgiving. That one's probably not going to be out to the first of the year, because I think that's going to end up being around 1,000 pages. Verse by verse teaching through the book of Revelation turned into a commentary about 1,000 pages. And I got a lot of reading and proofing of it to do during Thanksgiving. But the book on Hamas, sabotage is there, or siege is there, right? Siege is there and sabotage is coming soon. So there you go. And then the Revelation. All part of your vault. You don't need to buy anything. All part of your vault membership. So please consider joining now. This, by the way, makes a great gift for people. It makes a great gift for yourself. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Great ways to support us and keep this network and these programs going. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I said, you know what I think is happening here is as the economy becomes so difficult for young people, particularly young white males, they're going to be attracted to the idea of socialism. If you can't beat them, join them. I made some reference to that, right? If you go to school and you spend 4 years in school and you rack up lots and lots of debt, you get out, now you're in debt, and you go to find a job, but you can't find a job because you're being replaced with AI, or you're being replaced by people from Asia. You're being replaced with people that are maybe fitting a quota, affirmative action. And then, of course, we see the price of living, inflation. Owning a home, which has been classified as one of the ways to achieve the American dream, is, well, out of reach for most young people today. Add all this together, and many young people are starting to sour on the free market system. But we really haven't had the free market system, I think, since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created. But nonetheless, this is going to be blamed on the failures of capitalism. And I really believe what we're seeing here is going to be used to do a couple things. I think 4 things. One is to create a bitterness towards capitalism, a bitterness towards capitalism. But this is really not capitalism. It's not the free market system. Not when you have big government, big business colluding together, massive debt, printing of money, the Federal Reserve, which is not in the Constitution. Congress is supposed to be minting our money, silver and gold. But you make young people bitter toward capitalism. And then you create in young people today an envy of those who are financially successful. And you see that happening with young people today toward baby boomers. They're the ones that have a lot of the money in their homes and homes paid off and the 401ks and the retirement accounts and all that, right? And there's an envy now. And you see it on social media, an envy of financial success. And so you add this bitterness towards capitalism, this envy of financial success, and you add that with, I would say, arrogance and ignorance. An arrogance in ignorance. In other words, they're arrogant about their ignorance. They don't know history, many of them. They don't really understand the times, but they're sure confident that they know what's right. And they're very arrogant in their ignorance. And so they don't understand the real problem. But of course, that's the goal. The schools are not going to educate them as to, here's the real problem. Here's how we got here. Let us tell you about the Federal Reserve. And then young people today, well, they're in need of a cause. They're in need of a cause. And there stands communism. There stands socialism, however you want to define it. Ready to harvest these middle-class kids. And hasn't that been the goal for many, many generations, the harvesting of the middle class? So you create a bitterness towards capitalism. You create an envy of financial success. You create an arrogance in their ignorance. And then you offer up a cause. And I think you're going to see a lot of young people who would have never been considered proponents of socialism going that way. Let's see what our guest thinks. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. Trevor, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Brandon. Great to see you.
Great to see you too, my friend. What do you make of that little monologue? The 4 points.
I think it's 100% correct. You know, the left has, well, you know, as you're saying, we haven't had the free market system in America for over a century. And, you know, as the government has got bigger and the market's got more distorted, that favors certain groups over others, which is then feeds into a class struggle argument. Then you get people, you're getting an age divide now between the young people and the boomers. You know, that's the old class struggle, you know, the old division coming through. And these young people are entitled. They're been filled full of self-esteem at school without actually having to do anything, but they have very little real prospects, many of them. So they are absolutely being set up for revolution and socialism. It's very, very plain.
Mm. And hasn't the goal been to grab the kids of the middle class? That's been very crucial to the communists for over 100 years, right?
It has, and you'll find that most communist revolutionaries have come from the middle classes. This is, whether you're talking Che Guevara or Fidel Castro or Mao Zedong, they came from the middle class of their time, the educated, more well-off classes. It's never been a proletariat movement. It's never been a movement of the poor. It's been a movement of the middle class. So this is like Luigi Mangione, a young middle-class guy. He's obviously embittered at society. Things aren't going right, so he decides to assassinate somebody in the street in New York. And there's many others he's an extreme example of what we're seeing happen to a whole generation of young people, particularly men.
Yeah, particularly men. All right, I want to go to Russia. There is a podcaster out there. I'm not familiar with the podcaster, but Logan made me aware of this guy's statement. I want to play it. Again, I have no idea who this guy even is. I don't know what's going on with the hat, but I think Logan says he's a loser. So he's got a hat that, the Russian hat with dollars in it. So I guess he's trying to make a statement here, but I want you to hear what he's saying and see if you think there's any validity to this. Listen, please.
But the point is like, sorry, but when you look at this, so basically what I know to happened, and I'm gonna be careful to not cause any problems for anybody. But I can kind of trace the story back a few years. A few years ago, I was approached by RT Russia Today and was offered a lot of money to work for them. Yeah. I've been open about this, and so I was offered a lot of money, and I was offered. So I was out in Australia, and if you know about this, America thinks they're at war with Russia, but they're not. But I've been living in Australia, which is a bit of a different. I'm a resident there or whatever. I'm not a citizen, but my family is. My son's a dual citizen, whatever. Okay. That means he should run for Congress, right? Yeah. It's like it's a pre-factor. You got to be a dual citizen. So while I was there, Russia approached me. I ended up getting invited down to speak at a protest in Sydney, which turns out was funded entirely by Russia, which I have. I should put up pictures, by the way. I spoke at a protest against false imprisonment, and then everyone was like holding up signs of Putin, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, that was really cool. I really liked it. So I went up and I spoke, and because Australia has a Russian journalist imprisoned inside of the Russian consulate, just like, you have any of these other guys who have been arrested, these Americans, right, who are out there, or British people or whatever who kind of expose things. So there was a Russian journalist who ended up exposing some of the corruption of Australia and Russia, and sort of was speaking fondly of Russia. And then they seized his car, they raided his home, and then tried to lock him down, stole his passports. So he abdicated to the Russian consulate. He's stuck there in prison right now, and the Australian government won't let him out. And so, I was obviously very sympathetic to that. Yeah. And Russia thought that meant I wanted to work for Putin, So
I mean, he pays well.
Dude, you're learning fast, bro. This is easier than slavery, bro. We all make money. You know what I mean? This is better. I don't have to catch no one. You know what I mean? This is good. No, but sorry. So on the serious note, so they no one ever knows I'm a serious journalist, because every time I go on a show, it's like completely just out the window, right. No, so he abdicated. He goes by Ozzy Cossack, his formal name.
Cossack.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor, what do you make of that? I don't know if it's serious, but it seems like they're being serious. Does this sound like what Russia does and is doing, in your opinion?
Oh, look, 100%. That's a very small example of it. The guy he's referring to is Ozzy Cossack, who is a Russian who lives in Australia, who is a major friend of Putin, just promotes Putin's propaganda endlessly. But look, we saw, a couple, the Russians have massive influence on the American right and amongst American journalists and influencers. We saw, that Tim Pool and several others were found to have been funded very, very big time by the Russians a while back.
Wait. You have that all documented?
Yeah, there was a big scandal. It was well known. They said, the FBI said they were inadvertently funded by the Russians. And maybe it was inadvertent, but they were getting large sums of money. And they were influencers promoting Russian propaganda. Now, look, I only partially joke. You know, there are three elements in the atmosphere right now. There's nitrogen, oxygen, and Russian propaganda. If you want to know, for instance, why the big rise in anti-Semitism on the right, that is all completely driven by Russian propaganda, which is coming through well-known websites, anti-Israeli propaganda, anti-Ukrainian propaganda, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine propaganda, to drive a wedge in the American conservative movement, to split conservatives all around the country. It's no accident that Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes are both completely pro-Russia, both openly pro-Russia, as is most of what they now call the woke right. That is a Russian operation, 100%.
So where do you think we're going with our young people? With this financial problem we have in America that does not look like it's going to end anytime soon. It's going to get worse. It looks like coming up in December, our government is going to stop any kind of quantitative tightening. And they've really got no choice. They've got no choice but to, go to inflation. In fact, I was having on today Patrick Wood, part two today at 1:00. And in his book, The Final Betrayal, he has a quote from what he says is another Trilateral Commission member in 2023. One of the globalists who said this: 3 decades of globalization, defined as integrated, free market based and deflationary, has been replaced by what will be a multi-decade period of globalization defined as fragmented, not free market based, but industrial policy based and structurally inflationary. This year, 2023, is year one of this new global order, end quote. So the globalists have pretty well told us they're going inflationary because so much of the world is drowning in debt. Why not, basically make the debt smaller by inflating the currency, right?
Well, this is exactly what they want to do, which if you look at the middle class, if you're an asset holder, if you're a major asset holder, you can get some benefits from inflation in a way, but if you're not an asset holder, if you're a young guy just starting out in life, any savings you try and get will just be eroded immediately. So, this will create a situation where people can't buy houses, people can't be part of the American dream, people get embittered and people become revolutionaries. So this will lead to a period of massive instability, and inflation in the past has normally actually ended up in major wars. So yeah, it's not a good thing, but we are going to be paying the price of the massive profligacy that's gone on by the federal government and other governments for many years now. And so, yeah, this is I'm not so scared of the inflation, though that's going to be bad enough. I'm scared of the social instability and the war that will come with it.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to get a lot of young people who are going to turn into community organizers, maybe worse, domestic terrorists, joining the socialist cause. So it's kind of, a lot of them may be turning to Weather Underground.
And the fascist cause, and the pro-Russian cause, and the pro-Chinese cause. There'll be a whole gamut of things here.
Because the Weather Underground guys, Bill Ayers, those guys, they had advanced degrees, a lot of them, didn't they? Advanced degrees.
Yeah, they had advanced degrees. They were the children of upper middle class people. They were not short of $1 growing up.
So what appeals to them? Why is socialism attractive to the Bill Ayers as young people that come from middle to upper class families? What's the attraction?
Well, part of it is power and the ego that goes with social change. Part of it is guilt. You see this with a lot of trust fund babies. They never earned $1 in their life, and they feel guilty about the wealth that they have. So they spend a whole bunch of it on promoting left-wing causes, which makes them feel a little bit better about themselves. Hardworking people who leave school and get a job They don't really and make their way in life. Socialism doesn't appeal to them. It appeals to the poor who just want more, and it appeals to the idle rich, the trust fund babies, the upper middle class who have guilt trips going on. They believe the Marxism.
But this time it could appeal to middle class kids that feel like they've been cheated because they played by the rules. They went to school, they worked hard, they got a degree, and now they're being cheated by this, quote, system. So when you have people talking about burning down the system, the Weather Underground, Prairie Fire, the other terminology, burn down the American plantation, all these different books and phrases and papers written with those, words, the system has really mistreated the young people of the middle class today. So a lot of them are not coming now because, hey, I'm poor or I'm a trust fund baby. Now you're going to end up with potentially millions of young people who are just ticked. And they're like, well, if I can't overcome this system, why not join it? And that's exactly what we're seeing. I don't know if you can find that, Logan, on social media, but Logan's finding some young people that are saying, okay, fine, I'm ready for universal basic income because I'm tired of it. I tried. I played by the rules, went to school, got a degree, can't get a job. I'm being passed over. I'm a white guy, and I'm done. I'm sick of it. I'm all for universal basic income. We've never seen this in America before.
No, but, we saw it with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders actually had some truthful analyses of the system. He looked at the corporate welfare. He looked at the distortions of the market. He looked at the corporate state, and he could see how that was screwing the middle class over. He could see that. His analysis was more of the same, make it even worse. But it attracted a lot of people because what he was saying was true. That the playing field is weighted, that the corporations are too powerful, that the old American free enterprise system is not there like it used to be. The mom and pop business, the family farm, all of that's being squeezed. So, because too much government control. So Bernie, posits even more government control. So yes, you are. We're seeing the birth of great bitterness that could come to this country if Trump cannot get on top of things.
Well, how can he get on top of things when he's spending his time so much on international issues versus making America great? I mean, having the Crown Prince at the White House last night, a guy that I think the CIA says was involved in the taking out of that journalist, Muslim Brotherhood dude in Turkey. I mean, we're working with these kind of people, helping Qatar get a military base in Idaho. I could go down, 600,000 Chi-Com students coming into the country because we can't let the liberal, woke, cultural Marxist institutions collapse. Being for H-1B1 visas, although it's really kind of contradictory because I also read articles where the State Department is cracking down on some of these H-1B1 visas. So it's like, why is President Trump not talking about that, which would, of course, encourage his base versus what he said to Laura Ingraham a week ago. But if I don't understand, President Trump is spinning everything, it seems, on international, and how does he expect to win the midterms? But I want to go back to where we were. You're talking for the first time in American history, millions potentially of middle-class kids who are not the typical who get into communism by your example, poor or trust fund babies. So now we have for the first time middle-class kids who are now just mad. They played by the rules, and I understand. I totally understand why they're ticked. They've been cheated. Their birthright has been stolen. What we need to do is tell them why. We need to tell them about the Federal Reserve. We need to tell them that Washington is a rigged Ponzi scheme, that this idea of Social Security is a scam. You should have been able to invest your own money. All of this. We need to tell them the truth. But how do we overcome if you have millions and millions of millions and millions of children, young people, I should say now, joining the communist cause? It's not going to take long as the baby boomers are dying, but for this is going to tip. Logan's telling me that Mark Mitchell's out there saying that one survey shows that those under 40, voters under 40, what is it, Logan? 40% of them? 40% of those under 40 that were polled are for UBI, universal basic income. Is that right? Do I have that right, Logan? Okay, he didn't give a number. He said the majority of people under what age? 40 years of age? Even the Trump voters would sign on for universal basic income, even the Trump voters, because of things like AI.
Yeah. Well, and universal basic income is basically just pure socialism, pure communism. Look, we're in tough times. This is there's no easy way out of this, and Trump doesn't appear to be providing the leadership or making the right signals to get us out of it. But I can see many crises coming. And I can see the midterm elections are going to be very, very hard to win on the way things are currently going.
I don't know if you've had the chance to read Patrick Wood's new book, The Final Betrayal.
No, I haven't.
Well, it's a great little book. It's not very long. He's basically saying that MAGA is being betrayed when you have people like Peter Thiel come rushing in, who mentored J.D. Vance. His protege, Peter Thiel's protege, J.D. Vance, whom Thiel employed at Mithril Capital and bankrolled with over $15 million from his 2022 Senate campaign, serves as a direct conduit for Thiel's anti-democratic vision into the White House. That's what he writes. Yeah. And you have really the dismantling of MAGA coming. That's
the other aspect of this. This is, you've got the Dark Enlightenment. You've got Curtis Yarvin in the background, who's basically a mini-me of Alexander Dugin, the Russian philosopher, Putin's brain. And the Yarvin movement, which is Tucker Carlson to a degree, which is Peter Thiel, which is J.D. Vance, believes in an American feudalism. Basically, the end of the free market, the end of the Constitution, and a feudalist system. Nick Fuentes, who is the epitome of this Dark Enlightenment stuff, said the other day, we've got to bring the right and the left together. The left has to give up immigration. The right has to give up the free market. This so-called this Dark Enlightenment, this Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes right, is basically very anti-capitalist, very anti-free market, very socialistic, and is bordering on feudalist fascist. And it has a lot of influence in the Trump administration as well. So you've got all these forces converging. Brandon, you and I grew up really in an era where it was pretty straightforward to be a conservative. In the Reagan era, etc., you were anti-communist, you supported the Constitution, you supported Israel, you supported our allies, you supported a good education system, you supported the American way of life, and you supported the free market system. It was pretty straightforward being a conservative. Now the conservative movement in America is split multiple ways, pro-Israel, anti-Israel, pro-free market, anti-free market, pro-MAGA, anti-MAGA, whatever. It's a much more divided movement, which is only going to potentially hand power back to the left on a permanent basis.
Will it do that, or will they collapse the system before Trump can get out of office, and they will move to digital IDs? They'll downsize government like mad, because they have this whole program called, the acronym is RAGE. Has something to do with getting rid of all the government workers. I can't remember what it stands for, Logan. Do you remember RAGE? RAG.
That's all part of the Dark Enlightenment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well. So all of that is a possibility. All of that is on the table. So there's so many currents coming at us right now, most of them negative.
Listen to here's what he writes on page 58, Patrick Wood. Democracy in Yarvin's eyes, and this is Curtis Yarvin, who runs around with Peter Thiel, right? Who mentored J.D. Vance.
Yep.
Democracy in Yarvin's eyes is a failed experiment that breeds bureaucracy and what he calls the cathedral, a metaphorical alliance of media, academia, and government institutions that perpetrate progressive ideals and stifle true progress. Instead, he advocates for a patchwork of competing sovereign corporations where inefficient regimes could be rebooted or replaced without the messiness of elections, end quote. So in other words, what we have today has failed. So they want to go to more of a monarchy, a CEO. They want to make the president a CEO.
We're going back to feudalism, where we are ruled by the lords of the manor, instead of the baron, it'll be the tech giant, the tech baron will be ruling the world. Look, Yavin is a lunatic. He is a dangerous lunatic.
I'm gathering you, like me, you don't trust J.D. Vance.
No, I don't.
Me neither.
Because he's under the influence of Yavin. And he is no friend of Israel. He is no friend of the American Constitution and should not be in the White House.
In fact, J.D. Vance... Garvin's ideas have garnered explicit support from Trump administration figures. Vice President J.D. Vance, a protege of Peter Thiel, who has called Yarvin, quote, a powerful, end quote, historian, cited him in 2021. Quote, there's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things. I think what Trump should do, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, and replace them with our people, end quote. Vance has echoed Yarvin's rage. That's again an acronym, which stands for Retire All Government Employees. Retire all government employees. Now that sounds like a good idea, downsize the size of government. But if you're replacing it with AI and computers, good luck getting on the phone and making your case to a bureaucrat who can actually help you. Now, you know how. We have an organization here, and we have a lot of paperwork and red tape. And I have an accountant and tax attorney and a litigation attorney and a intellectual property attorney and all these different attorneys and people we have to deal with to keep all of our books in order and jump through all the bureaucratic red tape. And not too long ago, we got a letter from a government agency and wanting to know about some, asking some questions to figure out if we were in compliance with tax issues. We got the individual on the phone after they sent a letter with their phone number, called them. They were very nice, talked to them, asked them what they were looking for. They explained. I told them what I knew. And I said, but I'm not an attorney or an accountant. Let me put you in touch with my tax attorney. My tax attorney and him got together, they talked, and at the end of the day, my tax attorney was able to show the government worker what the laws are and why we weren't subject to a certain kind of tax. And the guy looked at it and he said, yeah, that's right. You're good. Your client's good. Thank you. We just needed to check this off in our box. Now, good luck having that kind of cordial, common sense, look at the law, go back and forth, till you understand each other's position, and then compare it to what's in the black ink on white page law. Good luck doing that with AI. So while I'm all for getting rid of a bunch of bloated bureaucrats, which I know sounds appealing to MAGA, MAGA doesn't understand. You're not going to be able to get on the phone with your accountant or tax attorney and find out what the bureaucrat and his office are wanting, and then come to an understanding and move forward. Good luck doing that with AI, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. This is not cutting back bureaucrats like Reagan would, so the government is smaller and more responsive to the people. This is cutting back bureaucrats and government so that the corporations can run the world in a feudal manner. I think this is the ugliest thing that's ever been proposed. I'm
now you're sounding like Patrick Wood, because Patrick Wood says this is worse than communism.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's on a par and would lead to that. This is feudalism handing the world over to unaccountable lords.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you see
this is what Americans
technocracy?
fought a revolution to get rid of? And these people hate the Constitution. They explicitly hate the Constitution.
Well, they openly talk about that this is outdated. We need to do away with it. I mean, and this is who President Trump picked it as his VP, who's hanging out with these guys.
He didn't pick him. This was Tucker Carlson and Peter Thiel who picked him. This is J.D. Vance got lumbered on Trump, just like George Bush II got lumbered. George Bush I got lumbered on Reagan. They put, Reagan had a hard time because the insider types put George Bush I on. The Yavinites, the Dark Enlightenment, these scumbags, to put it mildly, put J.D. Vance in there to advance their agenda, not American agenda, their agenda.
Before I go back to something Yarvin has written, is technocracy worse than communism? It's obviously it would be a form of communism, but not quite the same, that's for sure. But would it be worse because of the fact that it is so computerized? Now you're talking about, China does this, but that's not pure communism. This is, again, technocracy. In other words, let me ask you this. Maybe this is a better way to ask it. How do you distinguish technocracy from communism? How does Trevor Loudon distinguish those two?
Well, it's the natural outgrowth of two. Communism, technocracy is just communism with technology.
All right.
That's what it is.
That's what I believe. I believe that.
Chinese communism is communism. It's just Marx and Lenin with American.
But isn't it also the big government and big business? So isn't it a form of fascism mixed in there, not pure communism where the state owns it all, because it's now the public-private partnerships? Doesn't that make it a little different than traditional Karl Marx communism?
Well, it may make it technically different, but the practical impact will be exactly the same.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Like fascism and communism are identical in practice. It's just that, as you say, under fascism, technically, there are private interests who control business, and under the overarching big state. In communism, the government owns a business, but these are all academic differences. All we should really be looking at, are you a sovereign individual? Are you protected by a constitution? Do you live in a sovereign country? If you can answer those questions, you're good, in the positive. If any of those are undermined, you're basically on the way to tyranny. You're on the way to communism.
Do you think that at some point the patriots, conservatives, constitutionalists will be in the streets protesting this system with the traditional social justice warrior? In other words, do you think there's at any point when they realize this system has been put in place, big government, big business, big corporations, and partnerships with big government coming together to create a system that has us all as digital slaves? Do you think at some point the patriots, the constitutionalists, and the social justice warriors spill into the street because they realize that while they don't agree on a lot of things, the system is rigged against all of us? Do you ever see those two groups coming together to fight this tyranny?
Not realistically, not on a permanent positive basis. There might be, and this is what Nick Fuentes is saying, we want to bring the right with the left together to fight the system. But he's not right. He's a leftist. So he's bringing the fascist left with the communist left. We are not part of that.
No, we're not part of that. But at some point, don't you think people are going to wake up, even the social justice warriors, and realize, traditionally, that's your useful idiots, right? And they're the first ones that get shot and killed with a new regime, right?
Yeah, well, there will be all sorts of things like that happening, but it's not an alliance we should be seeking. We should not.
No, I don't think we should be seeking it. I agree with that. I just wondered if that would be a natural outgrowth. I don't think we should seek it, but I just wonder if that would be a natural outgrowth. There'll
be fractionation, and people will fight different things. But our job is to save the real, true conservative movement. the Judeo-Christian small government constitutional system that America was built on. That is what is the only thing that's keeping the world stable, and that's what's under attack now from these fake rightists and the leftists.
Okay, so how much of the MAGA movement is waking up? Because I'll tell you something, we're doing huge numbers over here. We're not going down in numbers, we're increasing in numbers. Now, people would say, and there are even people on my own team, 3 months ago saying, you might want to be careful. You don't want to upset too much of the MAGA people. You better be careful. I said, you know what? I'm going to bring them along. I'm going to bring them along. I'm going to educate them. I don't want to turn them off. I want to bring them along, but I am not about to moderate what I say so that I am now just a parrot of some political movement. Okay. I speak truth. We are guardians of truth. And so that's what I've sought to do, is to slowly bring people along based on what I'm seeing. And you know what? Our numbers are going up because I think people realize House is not a politician. He's not selling out to some sponsors that are telling him what he can and cannot say. He's not being bought by, the White House or some foundation, liberal foundation or moderate foundation or globalist foundation buying him and controlling the narrative to deceive people. He's clearly a free agent. And now he's gone from being a very enthusiastic supporter of Trump's MAGA policy, particularly in the first term, to now saying, we're on the wrong track, and where this is going to lead is to a technocracy and World Economic Forum 15-minute cities and a dystopian digital system of slavery. And I think people are tuning into this program because they realize we're not playing this right-left. Democrats are all horrible, Republicans are all wonderful, that we really have a problem with both parties.
This is not Fox
This
News,
is not Fox News. And so our numbers are going up. So with that, do you think there's a percentage of the MAGA people that are waking up and realizing that J.D. Vance and his people around him that put him there, that we're in big trouble, that the whole Trump Agenda 2.0 term could be derailed?
Yeah, well, and especially what has brought it into real focus is the Israel issue, because there's a lot of my friends are shocked at how quickly the propaganda, and this, as I say, this is Russian propaganda, this is dark enlightenment stuff, has tried to turn and tried to build an anti-Semitic strand inside of MAGA, to embarrass MAGA and divide MAGA. So a lot of my friends have been quite shocked at this, and I'm seeing a unification here. We have got to defend the conservative movement as we understand it, not this woke right, not this big right, not this Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson right, but the constitutional, Judeo-Christian, straight up the line, small government, strong defense, conservatism that we often, that really was what we all aspired to for many, many years.
Okay, so wait a minute now.
Still as conservative.
Why did the Peter Thiels, of the world, allow a Tucker Carlson to go down that road? If they did, assuming they did, why would they have him go down that road and split the MAGA coalition when the MAGA coalition was pretty excited about the idea of Doge and finding out where the waste is? Why would they want to split their own coalition? Why not keep the coalition together? Don't go down that anti-Semitic road. Keep the coalition together and move forward as a coalition and deceive the coalition into believing that MAGA was what they thought it was, not the technocracy that's behind it. Why would they not keep the coalition together and be more powerful? How do they gain by splitting the coalition now?
Well, I think, these people, many of them work for Russia. Simple as that. They are in Russia's pocket. And Russia wants to destroy the conservative movement, the MAGA movement, to bring the left to power and basically give Russia a free hand in the world. These people are mainly in Russia's camp. And Russia is all about civil war, all about the destruction of MAGA, all about the destruction of the American Republic. That's who they're working for. Why is Elon Musk's father going to Russia all the time and appearing at great big, Russian conventions? Why is Tucker Carlson interview why does Curtis Yarvin say we should all give Europe to Russia and we should give Asia to China and just have America? This is a Russian-sponsored movement to divide and destroy the conservative movement here. The old Reagan coalition. The Russians learned that their biggest enemy was traditional American conservatives. So you got to get inside the conservative movement and wreck it. That's the overarching goal here.
Let me give you a quote. Logan, can you pull up a quote and a video of Curtis Yarvin? I don't care. I just want to show what he looks like more than anything. Let me give you
Why would anybody follow this guy? Why would anybody put any credence to anything he says?
Well, doesn't that tell you a lot about J.D. Vance if he's quoting him as he was?
If anybody thinks Curtis Yarvin is an intellectual, you have to question your own judgment. And if J.D. Vance owes his job to fans of Curtis Yarvin, you've got to question J.D. Vance's motivation and competency.
Do you know that Yarvin is called for a humane alternative to genocide? This is what's in Patrick's book. He says in 2008 on his blog, quote, on a blog post, Yarvin wrote, quote, however, this is him. Yarvin has proposed a humane alternative to genocide from removing undesirable elements from society without moral stigma. Okay, here, as he wrote in 2008, quote, however, it helps us describe the problem we're trying to solve. Our goal, in short, is a humane alternative to genocide. This is the ideal solution. It achieves the same result as mass murder, the removal of undesirable elements from society, but without any of the moral stigma. Perfection cannot be achieved on both these accounts, but we can get closer than most might think. The best human alternative to genocide I can think of is not to liquidate the wards, either metaphorically or literally, but to virtualize them. A virtualized human is in permanent solitary confinement. Let me read that again. A virtualized human is in permanent solitary confinement, waxed like a bee larva into a cell which is sealed except for emergencies. This would drive him insane, except that the cell contains an immersive virtual reality interface which allows him to experience a rich, fulfilling life in a completely imaginary world, end quote.
This is the Matrix. This is, but for a man who's taken as a philosopher to seriously propose that kind of thing, Yarvin is an atheist, a self-proclaimed atheist. So he doesn't see people in terms of spirituality. He sees them as machines, some who are useful, some are not useful. How do you marginalize the useful ones? His final solution might be a lot more humane than Hitler's, but it's still him. Certain people get to decide who are undesirable and who are not. This is feudalism. This is the lords of the earth. This is not the American constitutional system where every man's rights are guaranteed by God, where only God gets to judge the value of human life. This is just so inimical to what America stands for. The fact that you have a vice president who gives any sympathy to this lunatic at all is got to be grave concern. And the fact that Trump does not see this and has people around him who promote this kind of vision, like Tucker Carlson, like Peter Thiel, is just shocking.
Well, it is, and it's very troubling. I'll tell you that.
And Patrick is right on in what he's saying. He's 100% right on.
One of the guys that he supposedly, according to Patrick, that Yarvin likes is Martin Heidegger.
Yes, who was a Nazi.
I write about him in my book, The Coming Religious Right. Let me just put in here real quick what I wrote about. Let me type in, do the old Control F. and read to you a few quotes. Here we go. Martin Heidegger's existentialism, which basically is a fancy word for moral relativism, and that of Kierkegaard differed in some ways, as did the existentialism of Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, but there's room for both on the highway of postmodern thinking. Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, of course, were the founders of postmodern thought, differed radically, most famously in their approach to religion, Christianity in particular. Kierkegaard was devout, while Nietzsche was a blasphemous atheist. But so too, 20th century existentialism or moral relativism would include both religious and atheistic philosophers. Now listen, Heidegger promoted deconstructionism in Germany. Listen, folks, don't let your eyes roll back in your head. I know big words, deconstructionism. All we're talking about there is a Marxist ideology of destroying foundations and absolutes. Heidegger, in a simple Cliff Note definition, Heidegger promoted deconstructionism in Germany. And when he joined the Nazi Party, he helped teach the idea of community and collective salvation to the false church in Germany. He believed that through Darwinian evolution and eugenics, the German people would create the Superman of Nietzsche and rocket beyond biological evolution to spiritual evolution. That meant Germans needed to embrace this idea collectively so they could all advance on the road of biological and spiritual evolution to ultimate salvation. Now, that's from my book, The Coming Religious Reich, 2016. Now, Wood says that Yarvin, who I guess is running in the same circles with Thiel and J.D. Vance and those guys, the Dark Enlightenment, the tech bros, technocracy, that Yarvin respects philosophers like Martin Heidegger. Well, you just see there, Heidegger is embracing the idea of Darwinian evolution. We've got to have societal evolution. Society evolves, morals evolve, the law evolves, we have spiritual evolution. And Wood claims that Yarvin is someone that follows Charles Darwin. But then you add in the deconstructionism, destroying the foundations, destroying absolute truth. And then collectivism, the good of the group over the individual until we achieve some kind of Superman or enlightened human being. Yeah. So now he's talking about some kind of clean technological way to do away with, I guess, the undesirables. I mean, how is this not really just modern day Nazism updated for the 21st century?
Yeah, absolutely. It's WF. It's what's Klaus Schwab's little buddy's name?
Noah Harari.
Harari. This is all. We have no faith in God. We have no faith. Yarvin is an atheist whose grandparents were communists, right?
Right.
You have no faith in God. You have no faith in the goodness of man at all. You believe that this democracy idea or this constitutional idea where everybody has rights, that has led to socialism. The only way forward for man is the strong men, the smart men to rule the world in their image, and they will perfect man, and they will get rid of the undesirables, and they will, cleanse our society without this bothering about elections, without accountability, any of that. This is just, this is feudalism with technology. This has got elements of Nazism, elements of communism in it. It is not traditional American conservatism. It's nothing to do with the Constitution. It's nothing to do with Judeo-Christian values. And it's being sold as the way forward for the US right. Well, if that's the right, it's wrong. That is not the right. That is a new form of the left, a horrific form of the left. And that's why you get people like Nick Fuentes saying that, we got to give up the free market. We got to give up these things. And this is why Yarvin just trashes the Constitution. It's a mistake. The Enlightenment was a mistake. The Dark Enlightenment, we got to go back to the Middle Ages. If he essentially wants to go back to the Middle Ages with modern technology, that's not the world I want to live in.
No.
That's not the world that's not the world we want to have anything to do with.
On chapter 6, which is page 71, listen to what Wood writes. Yarvin does not champion capitalism any more than he does democracy. He is critical of both. And by democracy, I know we're a constitutional republic, but democracy, I guess, is being used in the generic term of people vote, people decide.
So
he's not a fan of
rule of law, all that sort of thing.
Right. So he's not a fan of democracy. He's not a fan of capitalism. He's critical of both, seeing them as insufficient for achieving order and stability in society. He proposes instead a radical alternative rooted in anti-democratic and anti-capitalist principles, a centralized authoritarian government modeled on the efficiency and unity of a corporate monarchy, not on democratic participation or market freedom. He does not merely seek to preserve the established order. He wants to overthrow it. Ever since 1933, technocracy has been trying to kill capitalism and the concept of free market economics. Initially, the technocrats aimed to replace price-based currency. Listen now. In 1933, the technocrats, which I think included Elon Musk's grandfather, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, Patrick Wood talks about his grandfather, right, Logan? Elon Musk's grandfather was involved in that. Technocracy has been trying to kill capitalism and the concept of the free market economics. Initially, the technocrats aimed to replace price-based currency with energy credits and eliminate private property altogether. Energy credits back in 1932. Citizens were reduced to mere chattel to be cared for from cradle to grave. The accumulation of wealth was forbidden because your energy credit allotment would expire at the end of the period. It reminds me of Solomon. There's really nothing new under the sun. There's really nothing new at all. Trevor?
No, this is communism, fascism, feudalism. Look, the only thing relatively new under the sun was the American Constitution. Well, that wasn't new. We had to have, that took thousands of years to get us to that point. And that led to the greatest flowering of prosperity and freedom we've ever seen. And these guys want to turn their back on all of that and go back to the Dark Ages because they do not like that people like you and me, Brandon, and the people watching this should have some say in our lives. They do not like that. They believe they are born to rule, and the quicker they can get rid of the Constitution and our system of government and everything is ruled from above, the happier they will be. Yarvin is the philosopher to the king. It was always the king would try and expand his power, and the philosopher would tell him how to do it. Mandel House for Woodrow Wilson. These type of people. Well, he wants to be that type of person, the intellectual who tells the tyrants how best to rule.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to get you on here to talk about this. Let me read this in closing. The Dark Enlightenment is rooted in anti-capitalism. It promises an age of abundance, or the golden age. It promises an age of leisure with minimal work required.
Universal basic income.
To get there, it proposes to abandon money, debt, and interest entirely, replacing them with a new system based on cryptocurrency, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. Further, it will replace the constitutional republic with a monarchy.
Yeah, this is something we should be looking forward to. This is something that's going to replace the most productive system the world has ever known. This is going to lead to absolute tyranny, absolute evil. This would be North Korea with American surveillance technology. And you have serious people thinking this lunatic is worth listening to.
Well, he writes that the lack of vision explains why industry sources suggest thousands of custom bunkers have been commissioned globally. the majority going to wealthy individuals and celebrities. However, the subset explicitly built by tech oligarchs like likely numbers in the dozens, based on reports from reported cases and interviews with bunker builders. Well-known figures with survival bunkers reportedly include Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, Palmer Luckey, Reid Hoffman, and Steve Huffman. There is a cone of silence around the location ownership because of non-disclosure agreements are required for all construction workers and contractors, suppliers, and maintenance personnel. But he goes on to say, are they building these because there's going to be a period of massive civil unrest between these two systems as we go from a debt-based system to an asset-based system and the setup of the new currency? He says foreclosures of homes, personal and business bankruptcies will also destroy debt as the underlying assets are tokenized and transferred into the portfolios of the cash-rich investment funds. Remaining mortgage and customer debt will be turned into assets in return for the underlying property titles. Exactly how this will play out is uncertain, but the odds are rising that a forced nationwide default on mortgaged property could essentially wipe out debt altogether, transferring property ownership to the mortgage holders. Their income stream would then be the rent collected from the occupants and not the interest collected. It will be easy.
You own nothing and you will be happy.
Exactly. Own nothing, you'll be happy. Klaus Schwab. It would be easy to compensate the former owners for their remaining equity share by issuing asset-based cryptocurrency. So whatever equity you have in your home, we'll put that on digital block for you and go out and spend it however you want. But your what you've been paying will now be rent, not paying down a mortgage. So you won't own the home anymore. And some people may say, great, I'm tired of this and I don't want to deal with that anyway. So sure. And then I can tap into the equity in my home and start spending it. So the question is, are we going to have some kind of civil unrest or problem between the old system and the new one? Is that why these guys are building bunkers, Trevor?
Well, yeah, I think, well, partly they build bunkers because they see that we could have instability from a whole bunch of reasons, war with China, whatever. But look, and I think he gave a list of people, and I think some of those people would have different motivations. They weren't all bad people that were listed there. But the point is that, we are coming into a period of instability. So what do we hang on to? How do we keep the thread alive? What has made the West great? What's made America great? It's that it's Christianity, the Judeo-Christian culture, the Constitution, and the political forms that have guided us for a long time. That is what we must keep alive here.
Yeah,
that 100%. Is what we must preserve.
So in closing, Trevor, how do you think, if at all, a provoked world war, because it seems like Europe, some of these people are deliberately trying to get us in and not calm things down, but keep this thing going. How could a provoked world war play in to this technocracy and shift to a new system?
You don't have to provoke the Russians and the Chinese. They're already planning the war.
Well, that's right. They are.
About that.
Okay, so how would a world war be used for technocracy's benefit?
Well, for a number of reasons, war is a way to wipe out debt. It's a matter, these guys can probably think they can control the Russians or the Chinese. I think they're deluded. I think a lot of these people who think they are the Lord, I think what's his name? The Planned Parenthood, Microsoft guy, Bill Gates. I think he thinks he's in good with the Chinese. He's their friend and they're going to rule the world in partnership. I think he'll be lined up and shot like everyone else. I think there's a delusion amongst these technocrats and whatever. They think they can give the Eastern Bloc to China, Europe to Russia, and we Americans will just prosper and we'll have our technocracy and our dark enlightenment. No, what'll happen is, and that's why they always talk about multipolarity. America shouldn't be number one. We should share the power around Russia and China and Iran and all the other countries. Now, what'll happen straight away is As soon as we get rid of the current system, Russia and China will smash us and join to smash us. This is a Russian scam. This is designed to weaken America, destroy our alliances, destroy our economy, so we can be picked off by our enemies. And the people doing it may think they're in control, but I think they will be lined up and shot like everyone else. Personally.
Did you think that Trump's second administration would turn out like this?
Look, I've always put it this way. I campaigned all around the country against Kamala Harris because Kamala's a communist. And I knew that Trump would do some good things, and I knew he was a better option, but I also knew that there were people around Trump who were in Russia's pocket, and this Yavernite streak going on. So I was always concerned about that. So I'm not altogether surprised, and I'm very glad of the positive things Trump has done. And I'm glad for him for saving us from Kamala Harris and the Chinese immediately. But he is, his foreign policy, I'm more okay with his domestic policy than I am with his foreign policies. Foreign policy is very much what Russia or China would want right now. So I am disappointed from that point of view. I was hoping for better.
Yeah, me too. Do we have the clip in closing of Yarvin, Logan? You want to play that clip?
So there's a great piece that I've sent to, some of the people that I know that are involved in the transition, is, there's all sorts of people milling around.
Name one.
There. Name one. Wow. Name one. Well, I definitely know Mark Andreessen, and so I sent this piece to Mark Andreessen. Like, I'm an outsider, man. I'm an intellectual, and the actual ways in which my ideas get into circulation is actually mostly through the staffers and the kind of younger people who basically kind of, swim in this very online kind of soup. I'm on very safe ground, despite not knowing him well at all, that someone like J.D. Vance believes essentially in the common good. And the idea that government should serve the common good. And I think that people like JD and people in the sort of the broader intellectual scene around him, which is very varied intellectual scene, would all agree on that principle. Now, if that principle, I don't know what you mean by democracy in this context. What I do know is that if democracy is against the common good, it's bad. And if it's for the common good, it's good.
I think what you just described might be something that Peter Thiel would agree with. And there was...
I think a progressive could agree with it.
And there was reporting that I saw, I think it was 2017, reporting done by BuzzFeed, where they... published some emails, I think, between you and the right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos, where you talked about watching the 2016 election with Peter Thiel and referred to him as fully enlightened. What would fully enlightened have meant in that context?
What fully enlightened for me generally means fully disenchanted. When I look at basically what the kinds of people that I know not really that well in Silicon Valley think, I'm basically like, have people like this been exposed to my ideas? Yes. Do they agree that America should be a monarchy? I doubt it, but I have no idea. But what they agree on is not a belief, but a disbelief. So I think that when a person who lives their life within the kind of, sort of progressive bubble, liberal bubble, use whatever term you like, of, the current year, looks at the right or even the new right or whatever, you want to call it, I think what's hardest to see is that what's really shared is not a positive belief, but an absence of belief. Basically, we don't worship these same gods. We do not sort of see, the New York Times and Harvard as like divinely inspired in any sense, or we do not see their procedures as ones that
that's
sort
about
of
it. All I
always
can
lead.
take of that guy. He uses a lot of words, but doesn't say much of anything. But I guess that's a philosopher for you, Trevor.
But this is a leading intellectual. He calls himself an intellectual. I would struggle to give him that term. He's a smart guy, but he just waffles. He has no understanding. He either has no understanding of what he is trying to throw away, what has made this country great, no understanding of what it takes to keep it great, but he's just harking back to these old ideas that have been around since the dawn of history, giving them a new packaging, and every single time they've been applied, they've led to tyranny and chaos.
Yep.
And this is a guy who has the ear of the vice president. Are you serious?
If they run J.D. Vance for president, he's not presidential, number one. But if he runs for president, he will lose. I don't see him having the personality, the character, and as the more of us expose this kind of thing, I don't think this guy has a prayer unless they rig the election, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, I certainly do not want him on the ticket. I think he's a menace to the Trump ticket. I think he was put on there to carry forward an agenda which is actually opposite to Trump's. And
I guess we better pray that Donald Trump lives and finishes his entire term.
Well, that's right. I do not want President Vance getting inaugurated next year or something crazy like that. No, I'm very serious. And J.D. Vance might be a likable guy. He might come across well, but his ideas, if he thinks that guy, Curtis Yarvin, is someone to look up to, do you really want him anywhere near the White House?
Or even if his connection is through Peter Thiel, and Thiel likes Yarvin or any of his ideas. I mean, do you really want Peter Thiel that close to your president and vice president? I don't think so.
No, I don't at all.
Here's a picture. Here's a picture of Yarvin. There he is. Because I want to end on a little bit of humor tonight. I can with you, Trevor. That's, I guess, a picture of Curtis Yarvin. And I could not figure out who it is he reminds me of. But I think I have figured out someone I actually met, believe it or not, in a studio in St. Paul, Minnesota years ago. I walked in and there he was. But I don't know. I think Yarvin ought to get himself a ukulele. Because this Yarvin reminds me an awful lot of this guy right here.
Yeah.
Whatever he did to this song.
Oh, tiptoe through the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me.
Yeah, I think I sense some similarities between these two characters. No insult to Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim might have been more tolerable, but there you go.
Yeah, well, he did a lot less harm, that's for sure.
I walked into a recording studio in St. Paul, as I said, and there was sitting in a chair Tiny Tim, who was not a tiny guy. He was actually kind of tall. Well, everybody is compared to me, but he's an interesting character, no doubt about it. He got married on Johnny Carson, didn't you guys? They don't know. I'm asking them things they have no clue of. They don't even know who Johnny Carson is, do you?
They wouldn't even been born. They wouldn't have even...
Thomas doesn't even know who Johnny Carson is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tiny Tim gets married on Johnny Carson. I think it was one of the highest rated shows. Yeah. It was one of the highest rated shows around at the time. You guys could Google that if you wanted, but it would take you guys 10 minutes to find it. It's crazy the stuff I can find out here while I'm live on the air, quicker than those boys in the control room. But I thought the kids were all supposed to be so fast on technology. But I bet if I have time to look, I'd find out that, because I think my mind remembers, the ratings for the Tiny Tim wedding on Johnny Carson were huge. I mean, some of you probably actually watched it. Some of you probably actually watched the Tiny Tim marriage on Johnny Carson. I actually found some clips of it. They've all got their backs to us, but here we go. They actually got married. Here we go. Do you remember this? You were probably in America at the time.
No, I certainly remember Tiny Tim, but I don't remember this.
I don't think I was alive yet. I'll have to check the date on this. Maybe I was. I'll have to check the date, but I don't remember it, but I sure remember the replays of it. I had to have been alive. That looks like the 70s. Well, I don't know what year it was.
I hope it was a long and successful marriage. That's all I can say.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was. Let's see. Boy, this is deep television tonight, right?
Yeah.
I have to look up.
After what we've just talked about, a bit of light relief isn't going to go astray, is it?
No, it's not. And I have to look up what year he got married. He got married on Johnny Carson. 40 million people watched. One of the most watched television events ever. See, I told you. That was in 1969, December. So I was...
yeah. I wasn't even in high school.
I was like 8 months old, so I don't remember it. But it was 40 million people at the time watched it. One of the most watched television events ever. What was his wife's name? Does anyone remember what her wife's name? What do you call her? Miss? He called her Miss something another. What did he call her? Miss Sue? That was his third wife. What did he call his first wife? I don't remember. He called her Miss something another. But Miss Vicky, that was his name? Her name? Yeah. You look at that, you beat me on it. He was transported. Wow. See, I met him in St. Paul when I walked into that studio. November 30th, 1996. He was playing a gala at the Women's Club of Minneapolis. He had his third wife, Miss Sue, know before the show that he was not feeling well, but did not want to disappoint his fans. For the start of his performance, most of the audience had left. Really? That's sad. In the middle of the performance, his last number of the evening, a rendition of his top hit, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, he suffered another heart attack on stage. His wife asked him if he was feeling all right, and he said he was not. She then helped him back to their table where he collapsed and never regained consciousness. EMTs performed on-site CPR and transported him to Hennepin County Medical Center, where his repeated revival attempts failed. He was pronounced dead at 11:20. He was buried at Lakewood Cemetery in Minneapolis, 1996.
Wow. I wonder how old he was when he died.
I can tell you that. He died at the age of 64.
Oh, I didn't think he was that old.
Yeah. Okay. I met him just shortly before he died. If he died in 96, then I met him just shortly before he died. So anyway, for what it's worth, I think Yarvin reminds me a little bit of Tiny Tim, but Tiny Tim wasn't dangerous, I don't think. Yarvin,
no,
different story.
No.
But
yeah, very much a different story.
Well, if it doesn't work out for Yarvin in the intellectual world, he maybe should learn to play the ukulele. TrevorLoudon.com. Let's go over there. Boy, we taught you a lot in the control room tonight, didn't we, Thomas? You didn't know who Johnny Carson was. You didn't know who Tiny Tim was. You've learned quite a bit tonight, haven't you? You've seen Tiny Tim clips growing up. You have. You've seen clips of that one. All right, but you didn't know who Johnny Carson was. That's disgusting. How could you not know who Johnny... I'm going to have a talk with your father. Let's go here. TrevorLoudon.com. TrevorLoudon.com. Get all of his books and follow him on X and social media. Closing word of encouragement. What do we need to do with all the information we've taken tonight? What do we do?
Well, we have to it's up to us to deepen our faith and deepen our commitment to this country, to what made it great, to the Constitution. You know, we have guidelines. We got to be faithful and we got to be courageous, because this is a time where there's confusion all around. Stick to what you know, deepen your understanding, and we may get through this. You know. Well, look, you know, truth makes everything better. I don't know how the world's going to go, but the more truth we can get hold of, the more we can stick to it, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I do think
that's the only way forward, isn't it?
When I look at this through the lens of the Bible, Trevor, I think what we're seeing is the building of a global beast system. I mean, how else can you describe it? You start
It
reading,
certainly looks like that, yeah.
which again,
But
I guess I
what
just
do
have
we do? Do we give up and say
No.
it's coming, it's inevitable? No, we
No, we have
fight
to oppose
it
evil.
every single inch of the way. Every inch.
Christians have to oppose evil regardless. We do not sit back and say, oh, well, it's prophesied to happen. No, we're called to occupy till the Lord returns, to oppose evil, to speak up and speak out, and not be a part of doing anything to advance it. I think that's very crucial for conservatives and Christians. Don't be a part of advancing it. Call it out. Ephesians 5:11 have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose it. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Christians don't get to stop paying their mortgages because they think that the end is imminent. They don't get to stop keeping their personal commitments, and they don't get to stop opposing evil and defending their country.
That's right.
That has to happen to the last moment, because
100%.
none of us know when that's going to be.
Yep, 100% agree.
You go to your bank manager and says, I think the end of the world's imminent. I'm going to stop paying my mortgage this month. Well, how's that going to go?
Not going to go well. No, and if Christians do that kind of thing, as far as giving up and not being salt and light and fulfilling the Great Commission, it's not going to go well for them either at the Bema seat where we get our rewards. You might get in with your salvation, justification, but you're not going to do well on rewards when it comes to sanctification, ongoing faithfulness and obedience. So no, we have to run through the tape. We have to run the race all the way to the end, and that's what we're seeking to do. Otherwise, we would not be talking about these things. We would say, but we understand our obligation is faithfulness.
Let's just have a good time. Let's just go fishing. Let's go to Vegas. Let's whatever.
Yep.
How does that? You're right. There is a day of judgment, and it is James 4:17. It's not just for he who knows the right thing to do but does not do it, for whom it is a sin.
Amen.
So if you know it's the right thing to stand up for what is true, the right thing to stand against evil, the right thing to defend your country, and you don't do that, that's a sin.
100%. 100%. Well said. And as always, we appreciate your time. We don't rehearse these interviews, so a lot of times you don't know where I'm going, but I love the fact that I can have you on and talk about pretty much anything because you're so well studied. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it's the principles, isn't it, Brandon? If you know your principles, you can go any direction because those principles are so universal.
100%. Trevor Loudon, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There he is right there, trevorloudon.com, trevorloudon.com. Did I hear Logan come back in the control room? Logan, you missed out on Tiny Tim and the ukulele and everything. Man. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I got some very special videos to play for you. These are some tours, like to, what is it, Logan? Where did he go? The City of David? Trevor Loudon went to the City of David. Where else? Do you know? Huh? Not Trevor. Aaron, thank you. It's getting late. I'm getting tired. Aaron, our reporter on the ground in Israel, went to the City of David and did a tour for us. Where else did he go? You don't know where else? Oh, he went to Philippi? All right, we're going to play that. What else we got? All right. He's got a few of them. We're going to play the Pool of Shalom. I definitely want to play that one. All right, we've got several. We've been asking him to go out because, he's a tour guide in Israel. That kind of got interrupted after October 7th. But it's starting to come back a little bit, but not much. But we picked him up as a reporter, and we give him regular love offerings and ask him to come on our broadcast, but also to go out and do tours like he would with a tour guide. But bring your camera, bring your microphone, and take us on tours of Israel, the Holy Land. And he's doing that. And again, we send him regular love offerings because a workman's worthy of his hire. So we come back, we're going to play some of these. You might want to tell your family and friends to tune in. Really cool stuff. And if you appreciate the fact that we have a reporter on the ground in Israel and that we do have doing these kind of special programs, we appreciate your support of our foundation that helps allow this to take place. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. We'll be right back with a special tour of very important biblical sites in Israel by our tour guide and reporter, Aharon Levarko. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. WorldviewTube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the WorldviewTube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the WorldviewTube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the WorldviewTube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
Hi everyone, this is Aharon Levarko speaking to you on behalf of Worldview Television and Radio, and I'm standing here in Jerusalem, and not just anywhere in Jerusalem, in a very special place in Jerusalem. I am in what's called the City of David. Why is it called the City of David? Because 3,000 years ago, David and his men, especially his general Joab, or in Hebrew we say Yoav, they came up to Jerusalem, which at the time was called Jebus. And a group of Canaanites called the Jebusites, they lived here in this area, which was called the stronghold of Zion. This was a stronghold. And we read the story in 2 Samuel chapter 5. David said to his men, whoever captures the city through the pipe, through the shaft, he's going to be the captain. So Joab takes up that challenge and he comes up through the pipe. We're going to be there very soon. And he captures the city, the stronghold of Zion. David then calls it the City of David, because in those days, conquering kings named the conquered city after themselves. Now, after he did that, it says he moved his capital from Hebron to this place here, and then he builds a palace. Now, we're standing here in this believed area where his palace was. Why does it believe that here was the palace? Well, number one, the perimeters of all the rocks and the formation. This is a classic size of a fortress or a palace. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you look over here, look down into the valley. What does that remind us of? Remember, David was on his rooftop and he saw Bathsheba down there having a bath. And what did he do? He coveted, he took her. Some people actually say that Bathsheba knew very well where the king's house was, and she might have been putting herself on display. That's up for commentary. But the fact is this would be the ideal place for David to walk around on his palace and look down. But here is the third most important piece of archaeological evidence for me that seals this being the place of his palace. Over here on the wall is what's called a capital. That goes on top of a pillar. Now, most of the capitals that we've found in Israel are Roman or Greek capitals, Corinthians or Ionic capitals. But the ones that we found here, we found about 4, these are not Greek or Roman. They are Phoenician capitals. They are from the area of Tyre, Lebanon today. And we read in the Bible a text up here from 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 11. It says, "And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons. And they built David a house." So we know that the masonry work that David used to build his house was from Tyre. It was Phoenician. And they are the ones that we found in this very spot. So you've got the parameters of the area. You've got the location looking down when David went around, saw Bathsheba. And then you've got the Phoenician capitals that we found here. So this tells us a little bit about David building his house. And you know, it's questionable, someone with the character of David, why did he actually build a house? To me, it doesn't suit his character. He seemed to be like one of the guys that hung out at Ziklag. All the brothers gathered to him. Maybe he looked at other kings. He looked at what they were building and what they had, and he thought, you know what? I'm going to have the same thing. And sadly, it led him into a little bit of complacency, because the Bible says when kings went out to war, David remained back at the palace. So a lot of things to learn about, but here we are in the city of David, seeing archaeological evidence that David had a palace, that Joab came through the shaft, that the Jebusites lived here, and all this proof strengthens the biblical texts and accounts that we have. And of course, perhaps one of the most important things, especially among Jewish people, and it should be among Christians as well, is looking at the life of David. Even though he fell, even though he sinned, God promised that there would never cease to be someone from his lineage to sit on the throne. And we know, based on the Bible, that a man who also, like David, was born about 5-6 miles away from here in Bethlehem, a man who was called the Son of David, Yeshua, Jesus, the Son of David. That title was given to him because people at the time, 2,000 years ago, they were expecting a Messiah that would come from the lineage of David, who would overthrow their enemies. Now, Jesus, the first time he came to bring us liberation from within, through his death, through his resurrection. But when he returns, he will also return as the Son of David. And the next time he will come, and his eyes and it says his breath will be like the sword, and he will conquer forever his enemies. So thank you from Aharon Levarko at the City of David, Jerusalem. Hey everyone, this is Aharon Levarko once again, speaking on behalf of Worldview Television and Radio. I'm standing here in Jerusalem at the famous Pools of Siloam. You can see over here the original stairs from 2,000 years ago and even beyond. And this area extended all the way around here, and it even extended down here. Now, if you'd come here about 3 years ago, all of this area was filled with grass and houses. It was owned by the Greek Orthodox Church. But somehow, the Israel Antiquities Authority managed to convince the Greek Orthodox Church to sell them their land. So once our authorities got hold of this, they have been excavating it and trying to open it up to look how it would have come across 2,000 years ago. This was used as a place where Jewish people came and bathed themselves, and after they bathed themselves, they would be ritually pure. Then they would walk up about 1,000 feet, because 1,000 feet up here in this direction, which is the north, is the Temple Mount. And they would come up, they would bring their palm branches, their gifts, their offerings to the Lord, and maybe even their sacrifices. And they would go up to meet the Lord at the Lord's house, the temple. But going back to the Pools of Siloam, this was a place that people bathed. It was also the place where once a year, at the end of the long summer, which is right now, this time of the year, we are coming up to the end of summer. And in about 2 weeks is what's called Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. And do you remember in John chapter 8, it says, on the last and great day of the feast, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "If any man thirst, let him come to me and drink. For as the scripture has said, out of his belly will flow rivers of living water." And what would happen on that last day of the great feast, it was what we say in Hebrew, it's called the Hashanah Rabbah, which is the great day, where the priests, the Jewish priests, would come down with big pitchers, empty pitchers. They would fill it up from the pools here, and they would ceremoniously, almost prophetically, pour out the water, asking the Lord to send the rains. Because like I said, after a very long summer, our summers are extremely long and hot. So the ground, the land, the people are wanting rains. They're fed up of the long summers. So that's what the priests would do. They would pour it out. And it was like they were asking the Lord for rain. And it was at that context we read about that Jesus said with a loud voice, "If any man is thirsty, as the scriptures say, out of his belly will flow rivers of living water." And when he said, "as the scriptures say," I believe he was referring to Isaiah chapter 12, which says, "In that day you shall say, I will praise you, O Lord. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid, for the Lord my God has become my salvation. Therefore with joy you shall draw out waters from the wells of salvation." The Hebrew word salvation in the Old Testament is always the word Yeshua, which means salvation, and that's the name of our Savior, Yeshua, salvation. And by the way, in John chapter 9, Jesus came here, and remember that story? There was a blind man, and he told that blind man to go to the pools of Siloam. When he came here, Jesus spat on the ground, took some mud, and touched his eye. And it was at this sight, Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." What was the spitting? What was the proclamation all about? I believe Jesus was taking everyone back to creation. When man was created out of dust, number one. And number two, when God, out of the darkness, when no one could see, he said, "Let there be light." And the one who said, "I am the light of the world," it was here that he did that, after he healed the blind man. And then just lastly, it's really interesting. In the 4 Gospels, there's only 2 recorded miracles that Jesus did in Jerusalem. He probably did maybe hundreds, but only 2 are recorded. And that's the story of the pools of Bethesda and the pools of Siloam, where we are here. One was the healing of a lame man, one was the healing of a blind man. And what's interesting about that is 1,000 years before Jesus did those 2 healings, it was here in the city of David that David tried to capture this city. And do you know what the Jebusites said? In 2 Samuel 5, they mocked the Israelites and they said this: "Even the blind and the lame can fend off this city from you." They use the term the blind and the lame, and it says in 2 Samuel 5, David's soul hated the blind and the lame. And it would seem for the next 1,000 years, the blind and the lame became the outcasts of the society, like the lepers. And 1,000 years later, the Son of David, here in Jerusalem, who did he heal? What are the only 2 miracles that are recorded in the Gospels? Is the healing of the blind and the lame. That's someone who was called the son of David, Ben David, the Messiah, the one promised that would come through the lineage of David, right here in the precious city of Jerusalem. The last thing about these pools of Siloam, everyone, is the timing of the excavations. Why do I say that? Well, we've been talking a lot about, in the future, there's talk about a rebuilding of a temple and the red heifers. And according to Numbers 19, when you get the red heifers and sacrifice them and take the ashes and you sprinkle those ashes with hyssop and a few other things, and you use it to anoint the priests. The priests then become purified, ready to serve in the temple. But the other thing that the priests do is they come down and they will use these pools of Siloam. And so I just think the timing of the red heifers, the timing of the priestly garments, the priestly instruments, the menorah, the temple mount, and the uncovering of the pools of Siloam, when you put them all together, even though we can't see God, sometimes we can smell or see his fingerprint over everything. And so keep your eyes and ears open for the pools of Siloam and the continued developments as we see them working on it until this very day. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Should we go to the dolly cam real quick? Let's go to the dolly cam. Well, we're going to go to the dolly cam. You're just going to get up, come over here. We don't need to go to the dolly cam. All right, say goodnight, Dolly. Say goodnight to everybody. Let's call it a night. Hey, don't forget, we have to have a big November and December. Oh, by the way, we're doing our international worldview weekend on Friday, Thursday and Friday, December 4 and 5. December 4 and 5, that's a Thursday and Friday, we're doing our International Online Worldview Weekend. All right, we're going to preempt all the shows for that Thursday and Friday. We're going to have a lot of very, very special guests. And so please call in and leave your personal testimonies about what you appreciate about the program. Maybe how much you love seeing Dolly. You can do that by calling that number, 901-468-9357, I think. 901-468-9357. Leave your personal testimonies that we can play on the air, please, to our voicemail, 901. I have a lower third for it, but nobody's paying attention to me. 901-468-9357, if I remember correctly. Hopefully that's right. 901-468-9357. So leave that there. Voicemail, and we'll play some of that on the air coming up soon. All right. And then don't forget, like I said, we have to have a big end of the year, November, December. Please, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there, and we'll send out the receipts with our EIN number around the end of January for your paperwork. All right. Roll the music. Call it a night. Let's call it a night. worldviewfoundation.com. Oh, and you'll find our phone number there. If you prefer to give over the phone, leave a voicemail for Melissa or text her on the number on our website, worldviewfoundation.com. She'll get back to you. Leave a voicemail or text her. She'll get back to you. She screens calls because of some of the crazy liberals out there. So she screens calls, but leave a voicemail or text her. She'll get back to you and help you make a contribution over the phone. All right. Now we can go to the dolly cam one more time. That's our broadcast for tonight. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
You're welcome. Glad you're with us. All right, so we're going to do part 2 today with Patrick Wood on his book, The Final Betrayal. The Final Betrayal. I was up till pretty late night before last reading it, and we brought you part 1 yesterday. Maybe we could recap real quick. Basically, what we're saying is President Trump is not running the same term he was running the first time. term 2.0 is very much loaded up with the tech bros, and he seems to be going all in. Then you have, of course, J.D. Vance, who was, according to all the work and research done by Patrick Wood and others, J.D. Vance was set up in the financial world by Peter Thiel and then lobbied President Trump very hard. It sounds like maybe Don Jr., I've read, Peter Thiel, Tucker Carlson, to take J.D. Vance, even though he's on video saying some horrific things about Donald Trump. I mean, just horrific things. And yet he gets on the ticket. And now the premise of the book is the MAGA movement is being betrayed. What is being put in is basically to replace the constitutional republic and give us a CEO, kind of really what Donald Trump is, a CEO who I'm sure gets very frustrated as a CEO. I mean, he's 80 years old, isn't he, or 79? So he's spent the bulk of his life calling the shots, making the decisions. Comes to Washington the first term, and he kind of found out what it's really like. But you could see where a guy like him would be very open to the ideas of these guys, because in his mind's eye, they keep disrupting my plan because they get in the way. It'd be great just to be the CEO, the king, if you will. But we know that there are guys around Trump, like Larry Ellison, who have said they want to open a file on every American. There's been the talk of the RAGE. That's an acronym for getting rid of basically government civil servants, so that everything is now done by computers. I think what we're talking about here, folks, is really kind of a China-like system, social credit scores. Then you roll to digital currencies, and then you are in a dystopian society. There will be no freedom. It will be chosen as to what freedoms you're allowed to practice and to what level, what extent. And so Patrick's work and research basically says, look, guys, the MAGA movement is being betrayed. And you can wake up and see it now and try to stop it, or you can find out 5 years from now or less and then say, oh, we got duped, we got taken in, if I'd only known. You know, that's the common phrase that was used by the guys that came out of the POW camps of North Korea. When they came out and the historians, the doctors, the experts, the military professionals, the guys that were experts in brainwashing and psychological operations said to them, this is what they did to you. This is how they were doing it. This is how they were doing it. These were the tactics that they were using to demoralize you, to cause you to stop resisting and to believe the lies, which you were not able to refute because you didn't know the truth. And the common response by those POWs of the Korean War, this is in my documentary, Brainwashed America Part 1 and Part 2. You don't need to buy it. It's in the vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Their common response was, well, if we had only known, if we had only known. And so that's really where we're at now. You can either learn it now, know now, or learn it after the fact when it's too late. Now, before we go to Patrick Wood, I do want to bring something up to you. If you guys go to worldviewreport.com, that's your daily aggregated news site, worldviewreport.com, you might have to use the old Control F, because I put a lot of stories on worldviewreport.com today. A lot. I updated a lot of stories. So you might need to do the old Control F and put in the word creepy, CREEPY, Control F and the word creepy, and it'll bring you pretty quick to the article that's way on down the page. And here it is. Super creepy. The world ahead of 2026. Economist magazine cover signals war, pestilence, and financial collapse next year. Now, the Economist magazine, I'm pretty sure Patrick Wood can tell us what he knows about that, but this is a magazine that is really kind of run by a lot of the globalists. But the globalists seem to like to tell us what they're going to do, don't they? And I showed this on television last night, and I have to tell you guys about it here today on radio and television, because I did not study it as closely as maybe I should have before I went on the air. And then when I went on the air and I was zooming up on it and looking at it, I thought, oh, wow, look at that. And that is when you have the Globe on their cover of the Economist magazine, the world ahead 2026, It's a globe, and it has a couple tanks, big tanks on the left, the right, military tanks. It's got two swords crossed in the middle. That's Islam, folks. That's the crossed swords you see on the Islamic flags, right in the dead center. Are they trying to tell us they are expecting a terrorist attack or a global terrorist attack? That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Right on the center. And it's the backdrop of the two swords is an economic crash. What are they telling us? And there are syringes, like maybe a new pandemic. There's missiles all over the place. But the one that really caught my attention was the one on the right corner, right top. It would be the left, actually, if you're looking at the screen, top left corner. It is a cargo container ship with the cargo containers all stacked up on top of each other. And out of the side of the cargo containers are being fired missiles. And it gets even more ominous. There's a satellite orbiting the Earth, and you can see the signal going from the satellite down to the cargo containers. Now, folks, in 2018, can I say that date again? 2018 is when I released my documentary, Sabotage. And in that documentary, I had a lot of details and a lot of pictures and a lot of videos detailing the Club K cargo system, the Club K cargo missile launching system. At the time, you could buy them. They were manufactured in Russia for about $10 million. And I showed video footage of one of them on display at some kind of fair or carnival. And with the command from a satellite, the lid can lift up on this cargo container. Think about the cargo container that you see on the back of railroad cars or the back of a semi-truck. And they're stacked on cargo ships. And they can come into the harbor of the, let's say, the Gulf of America. And then they get a satellite command, and the lid lifts up, and up pops anywhere from 2 to 4 silos, of which missiles can then be fired, and they can have nuclear missiles on them, small, compact nuclear missiles. And I go into details on that, being the little beach ball, as they called it, developed by one of the scientists tied to Saddam Hussein, who's now tied back to one of these families who's running some of the according to numerous news reports, running some of the cargo container ports in America. What could possibly go wrong? Apparently, all of this got through when the financial